Thank you so much for joining us for the 7th annual Entrepreneur Speaker Series called Built in Blue Ash. This whole series is designed to celebrate entrepreneurship and provide insight directly from some of the most successful business people in our region. Tonight, we are also continuing our celebration of our 50th anniversary. We're honoring two very accomplished entrepreneurs who founded their own companies and grew them into industry leaders right here in the Blue Ash community. Before I introduce our speakers, I want to take a moment to recognize our generous sponsors for this evening's event. Ohio National Financial Services is the presenting sponsor for our 50th anniversary. And Flynn & Company is the sponsor of this Entrepreneur Speaker Series. We truly appreciate the support of our sponsors, and that contributes to student scholarships. Let's give a hand for our sponsors tonight. And now for our two special guests tonight. They have each forged their own path to success in their chosen fields. First, Carla Eng built on her experience in the trade show and event marketing industry when she co-founded Abstract Displays Incorporated in 2000 with her husband Mike. The company is a global force in the trade show industry as the premier designer and producer of dimensional solutions for exhibits, events, and all face-to-face sales, marketing, and corporate needs. In fact, even the large number 50 on our stage, as well as our backdrops, were created by her company, Abstract Displays. Carla faced some challenges in getting the business started, both professionally and personally, and the most significant certainly was her battle with cancer. Carla often shares her inspirational stories with others after she was diagnosed during the first year of developing her company. But she made it through the surgeries and treatment, and today is healthy and thriving, and is the president of Abstract Displays. Carla's company has clients across the U.S. and has experienced phenomenal growth every year since it was founded, with sales increasing more than 1,000% during that time. Carla also gives back to the community in a variety of ways, including being a scholarship donor here at UC Blue Ash College. Please join me in welcoming Carla Eng. So we are also fortunate tonight to have Ryan Rybolt, the CEO and co-founder of Infinitech, a Cincinnati-based company that specializes in electronic payment processing for businesses and organizations throughout the U.S. Infinitech was founded in 2005 with the vision of delivering a smarter approach to the payment processing industry. Ryan is responsible for the strategic direction of the company, including new market development and acquisition efforts. Under his leadership, Infinitech has emerged as an industry leader in business-to-business payment processing, activating over 11,000 customers and processing over $3 billion in annual credit card payments. Ryan is also very involved in the community. He's the founder of Give Back Cincinnati, a social volunteering organization with over 6,000 members. And he serves on numerous community boards, including the UC Foundation Board of Trustees. I would also be remiss if I didn't note that Ryan is also a proud UC alum. Go Bearcats. Please join me in offering a warm welcome to Ryan Rybolt. Now I'm going to turn the program over to Kent Lutz, and I really, truly want to thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you, Robin. I also would like to thank you for being here tonight. This is a special event, particularly being our 50th year at UC Blue Ash, and particularly having two Blue Ash entrepreneurs with us. That's very special to us tonight, so thank you again for being here. So I'm going to start the questioning a little bit. And Carla, why don't I start with you? What led you on your entrepreneurial journey?
I was in the exhibit industry for, I was an exhibit manager for a software company for many years. And in the late 80s, when it kind of tanked, software tanked for the first time before the .com burst happened. I knew trade shows, so I went looking for a trade show job. I was a single mom at the time and could not be without work. So I went to work for an exhibit company in sales, and I had never done sales before in my life. I'd always done marketing. I was scared to death to go into sales, but I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? You know, I have to get another job, right? So started in sales and went to work for a couple of different companies, wanted to find the right fit for myself. And something I saw that was missing in our industry was the ability to make relationships with people. When you're in sales, a lot of times it's like, hurry up, get another sale, because you're always driven by numbers. I'm motivated and driven by numbers, but I also want to have relationships with people. And so my husband and I said, you know what, we can do this. Let's try this on our own. And worst case, we have to go find another job. It doesn't work, right? But we were very driven when we started it. I had already had an established base of customers, and I have some of those customers today, and I've had the same customers for about 23 years, and that does not happen in this industry. It's been quite a ride, you know, for 17 years being on this side of it. But I'm glad I made the move.
I'm glad you brought out the point about relationships, because that's so very, very important, whether it's relationships with customers, whether it's relationships with your employees. Relationships are really what help build businesses.
You're right.
So Ryan, what about you? How did you get started?
Well, I took an unusual path to becoming an entrepreneur. By way of background, I'm first generation college, grew up in Harrison, made my way down to the University of Cincinnati, and navigated the college experience. I don't know how many are first generation college students in the audience, but navigated my way through and landed in a corporate job. And I saw this revolving door of talent, and I was at Procter & Gamble at the time, and this revolving door of talent coming in and out of Cincinnati. And historically, I'd never been, you know, what I would consider a leader or an entrepreneur. But a few friends, you know, we got together and said, you know, it'd be fun if we found a way to embed this talent into Cincinnati so that they didn't leave. And that was the spark of this whole idea of creating Give Back Cincinnati, which, you know, started with 40 friends and now is 6,000 plus members. And the whole intention was to embed people not from Cincinnati into the communities through volunteer efforts. And then eventually it became a big meat market, and everyone was getting married and having kids and planting roots in the community. But really what it did, that whole experience, and then, well, it's how I met my wife, Kara. In fact, I think we were the first match made by Give Back. But, you know, what Give Back really taught me was that, you know, while we were running a business at the time and it didn't make money, it gave each one of us that confidence to go out there, try things new, learn how to lead. And ultimately, when I left P&G and landed in this payment space, you know, I partnered with, I have a business partner, Tom DeBoard. We went out and bootstrapped the company. And I remember going, it was the scariest thing in the world, you know, where you don't have a single customer. And, you know, you land that first customer. The first one's always the hardest one. You're doing chest bumps in the hallway. And from there, you know, just the floodgates open, the confidence build up. And I knew at that point that we would hopefully be a successful entrepreneur.
I want to introduce your wife. Is that okay? Go ahead.
Sure.
You introduce her. Have her stand.
Yeah, no.
And your two kids.
So my wife Kara, who actually was our breadwinner, the reason that we're successful, and our my two daughters, Lila and Lauren, who are hopefully doing homework. And they probably heard the story, but anyway, yeah, she, you know, was our breadwinner and basically also worked in the business for many years.
I love your story because it's an evolution. You evolved through a whole process, you know, before you recognize that maybe this is something you really have passion about and really want to pursue. So what were some of the challenges, though, that either one of you faced? Carla, you know, obviously you had some health issues, no question about
obviously,
that.
we started our business in our basement in 2000, December 6th. and stayed in the basement until April. You get up, you get dressed, you put your clothes on and leave your slippers on, get on the phone. Our warehouse was in Kentucky, so my poor husband had to drive to Kentucky every day to work on exhibits, and I stayed in the basement making phone calls, and it was just the two of us. May we moved to Blue Ash and found a great space, and it was 8,000 square feet, and I said, we'll never fill this. And today we're in about 55,000 square feet in Blue Ash. So we've obviously filled it, but it's then in May of 2001 I found out that I had colon cancer at the age of 42. I share that because I want people to be educated that you don't have to be an old person to get this. So I'm a big proponent. I talk SHIT all the time, and that's just so that people make sure that they go and get their colonoscopy. So I'm a big proponent of that, okay? But you do what you have to do. I had to have health insurance, right? So I had to keep working. So I did my chemotherapies on Friday, recovered on the weekend, went back to work on Monday. The funny part of it is, and I can laugh at it because you survive things like that. For me, it's the 4 F's. It's faith, family, friends, and fun. And I make the most fun of myself, because I'm sure everybody else is, so I might as well jump on the bandwagon. So it's to where, you just work yourself through it, and, I can't imagine not having it. It made me a better person having that experience. So, yeah.
I like for all the students to take down those 4 F's.
Yes.
Repeat those again.
Yeah,
Faith,
it's faith, family, friends, and fun.
faith, family, friends, and fun. Faith, family, friends, and fun.
Yeah.
Faith, family, friends, and fun.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Because I'm going to ask you that in my classes, all right? Tomorrow and next week. I'm going to ask you what those 4 F's are, so remember them. Okay.
Yeah.
Ryan, what about you? What were some of the challenges you faced in building your business?
I guess what I would say is, growing fast enough to pay the bills. And, we ran out of money a few times, right? And, we had to skip.
No paycheck, right? No paycheck? Yeah, no
right,
paycheck.
And really, honestly, we would have to forego our paying ourselves
Yeah.
in order to meet payroll. And then, in many cases, we would sit around and we would finally make enough money that we're breaking even or making a little bit of a profit.
Yeah.
And we would say, well, do we hire another person or do we take a paycheck or do we take more money? And trying to maintain integrity in that your commitment to, so we entered an industry that was very mature, credit card, and we do credit card processing, electronic payments. Some people don't get that, but everyone, how many people have a checkbook? No one, and so, you use your card for everything, your watch for, making payments, your phone for making payments. But historically, we entered an industry that was really plagued by people that didn't have the best interest of the customer in mind. And so we had to overcome those perceptions of this industry. And so to do that, we we're transparent, we're going to let you know how much we're making. And in order to do that, we had to make very, very, very little and thin margins, which we always joke about it. We were on the get rich slow plan. And we succeeded.
That's the best way. That's
right. Very slow. An emphasis on slow. But really, I would say it's just that patience. Every projection that we put together in a business plan, double the amount of time it takes to grow to those numbers that you would have expected.
Is it a bad thing to have a checkbook? I have a checkbook. In fact, I have 2 of them. Is that a bad thing?
Yeah, it's funny because we had to order checks today by chance. Literally, true story. I was on the phone today. I need checks by this Friday.
Yeah. Some people only do.
Both of you bring up a couple interesting points. One of the things that I really try to emphasize, and particularly in my entrepreneurship class, because they create an idea and create a business plan around this idea, and they present that at the end of the semester. And one of the things they struggle with is, gosh, I think I can make money right out of the chute. And I say, no, I don't think so.
I want to go to work for them.
That's right. I'll fund your business.
I think it's going to take a few years to start making a profit. No, we think we can make it now. But the reality is it not, that you don't make money right out of the chute. It might take several years before you even break even. Is that fair to say?
Without a doubt. And you have to, when you start a business, and you create that business plan. It doesn't have to be a 30, 40-page business
No.
plan. The most important thing to realize in that business plan is A, how are you going to make money? And B, why haven't others created that same business plan to make money? You have to understand
Yeah.
your key differentiators, what the market competition is, and how much money are you going to, how big of a hole are you going to dig
Right.
before you get out, and before you can actually, and be realistic about it and be very, very conservative about it, because, having been through this, over the past 15 years, I can tell you that it's so hard to compete when you're an unknown entity.
You better believe
right?
it. Yeah,
I
so much
think-
smaller
Absolutely.
than everybody else.
Sure.
And yeah, because we're so much smaller. A lot of the exhibit houses in town are a lot bigger than we are, but we're more like a boutique exhibit house. But and you're right, it's doing the business plan and it's modifying it continuously because things change, and you realize, gosh, I have to hire someone, and you didn't plan on having to hire someone because you did have growth. So it's like, gosh, we got to change this. Where are we going to? Okay, I won't pay myself for a year just so I can hire someone. And those are the realities of it, to where you go without paychecks. You put your house up. I mean, we put our house up as collateral so we could get a business loan. That's the kind of stuff you have to do, because we believed in it. We knew that we were going to be successful. There was not an option, right?
Absolutely.
Now, you both mentioned the importance of a business plan. There's sometimes out there's a feeling, well, you don't really need a business plan.
Oh,
It
yeah.
all matures in your head. You go through a process in your head. But a business plan is really critical, is it not? In both cases, you both had
It is.
business plans.
I think having a sound business plan is as important as having like a board of advisors within
Yes.
your organization,
Mhm.
because we can talk an hour about the importance of a business plan, but I think that equally important to that is just having someone holding you accountable
Yeah.
to that business plan, after the fact.
Well, if you want to get even collateral, or get money, the bank is going to require you to have a business plan. You don't walk in and say, I'm here, give me money for my business. You have to have a business plan when you walk in there to get that money.
So that brings up an interesting point, about how you really go about securing the financing, for a startup business. Did either one of you have investors or outsiders who invested in your business, or was it
I didn't.
all done from within?
Mine was from within. The one thing that we did do, obviously we put our house up, for collateral, but then we went back when we started growing. The SBA is a great resource. The SBA has a lot of small business loans. So I highly recommend, even if you don't know how to write a business plan, the SBA is a great resource. They have the SCORE. Mike and I went to SCORE. It's retired business people that you can actually sit down, and they'll be your consultant, and you can call them, and they help you with giving you advice. And it was very sound advice that we got from them. But we went to the classes, and I think we attended them here, actually, when it was Raymond Walters, actually. And
Yeah.
but it was all us. So
Yeah, we bootstrapped our company. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we were fortunate that we had, significant others that could help as a crutch and to help provide, health insurance while we were bridging that gap. Again, even with that, we ran out of money and ended up bringing in a third partner into the business who was actively part of the business shop. And he, was fortunate to come and help us get to that point where we can continue to grow. But, bootstrapping companies, it's fun, it's difficult. I sometimes wonder what our organization would look like had we sought out funding, outside funding. Where we would be. I don't doubt our decision at all, because we maintained our autonomy. We were nimble. We could continue to be who we wanted to be, and didn't only had ourselves to answer to.
yeah.
If we didn't hit numbers each month, it was our own fault. We weren't answering to an outside board or investor community.
Brian, you mentioned the term bootstrapping. Now, there may be some people here tonight who don't understand exactly what that means.
Yes, Ryan, tell us what that means.
Tell us what that means.
Give me a minute.
He's going to look it up. Yeah.
Well, what my definition of bootstrapping is that, when you hunker down, you basically, make it happen with your own means, the means that are available to you.
Okay.
I don't know the origin of the saying. Obviously, by you asking the question, you know what it is, so I would love to hear it.
Well, I think you hit it on the nose. It's using whatever resources you have. I look at it as your affordable loss. What can you afford to lose and not lose everything?
Yeah.
That gives you a fresh start. Because one of the examples I give in class too is, the example of Milton Hershey. I don't know if you ever read the story about Milton Hershey. He went bankrupt 6 times before he discovered the miracle of chocolate.
Thank
6
God.
times.
Thank
Yeah.
God.
Wow.
So how do you
Oh, my
persevere through something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, that takes
Brilliant.
a lot of perseverance.
And lots of sugar.
Lots of sugar, and he had lots of sugar. So tell us a little bit, either one of you, both of you, about how you go about finding the right people to work for you in your organization, because that's always a tough job. That's always a tough job.
Well, I'll say that as an entrepreneur in a small business, we can never offer the benefits or the salaries that a large company can. Absolutely no way. And so we challenged with attracting people, trusting our business plan. We were not a known entity, so people were putting their family and their lives at risk by leaving a steady job and a secure job to come work for a startup. Mm-hmm. And so we had to balance that with a few things. A work-life balance. Creating that family within Infinitech. And I would say that to a person, they'll say that, Infinitech genuinely felt like their family. When they came to work, we tried to make them as comfortable as possible, be accommodating to life circumstances. And, the second aspect of it is, we, as transparent as we were to our customers, we were equally transparent to our employees. We led the organization. What I'll say is it's like consensus-based leadership or decision-making. We tried to make sure everyone was part of the decision. They were vested in the success of the company. They knew whether we were making money or not making money. And by them having that visibility, that really, I think, started, compiling on itself. And, it's incredible the number of family members we have working in the company, but also family of families saying, can my son come work for us? Or can a cousin? So now it's just word of mouth. We don't use recruiters anymore unless it's for a specific task. Now we have an opening. Okay, we have it filled within a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Carla, how
hard.
about
Well, for us, I don't know if anybody was here early enough to watch some of the slides that they were playing. And I told Kent, I said, most of the pictures that I provided were of my employees and of the things that we do for our employees, because the same philosophy to where it's about family, because we are a family-owned business. My son works there. He's been working there since he was 18 years old. He's also a UC Blue Ash alumni. My daughter-in-law works there. My niece works there. I've had family members I've had to fire. Okay, which is never fun for family reunions. But you got to do what's right for the business and the other employees, right? It's about that. So we try to focus on the employees and make it about them, because I have found that by focusing on the employees and making it about them, it makes it easier for them to work with my clients. They get it. They understand what our mission is, and that's provide world-class customer service to these people. And if they feel needed, that they feel part of it, it makes it easier. And I know they're going to take care of my customers the way I'm going to take care of them, because that's the biggest thing. The clients they want. I've set the standard. I want them to continue that standard. I mean, last week was customer service week. A lot of people didn't know that. It was Customer Service Week. So we made something every day. It wasn't about our customers. It was about our internal customers.
Absolutely.
So we did something every day for our employees, from our managers fixing breakfast for them on Monday morning to ending the week with ice cream social. We did a day of superlatives. That was a lot of fun. You know, it's I'll let you know that mine was the person most likely to be dancing in the hall. Just so you know, you can.
She's going to demonstrate in a minute.
Ryan
Yeah.
knows
She
me.
wanted to do the Macarena tonight.
Yeah, I did. So it's hard, and I will tell you, I have managers that have been with me. We've been in business 17 years, excluding my son. Obviously, he's been there since he was 18 years old, and he's 37. So
You can start him at 13, I think, now.
yeah, I know. It's I've got grandkids. Yeah,
Perfect.
They're next. But I've got managers that have been with me for 12, 13 years as an average. So you've got to find that good core group that you know is going to be with you a long time, and they see the vision, and they want to go on the ride for them. Some days we didn't know where the bus was going, but they were still on the bus, and they were trusting that we were going to take it somewhere and not run it into a wall.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. You know, employees will come and go. I'm not going to tell you I have hired some stinkers and made some mistakes, and because you have faith in people, I would say that's probably one of my biggest mistakes. Like sometimes you have faith and when you shouldn't have faith, and I probably should have hired an HR person long before that,
Right.
instead of keeping it tight and hey, I'll handle HR. Don't do that. Don't do HR.
I will say one of the toughest decisions as an entrepreneur is that, if someone has put their faith in you and gone out on a risk and, are on a limb, taking a risk to join your team, and it's not a good fit, I have to say it's the single most difficult role as being a business owner or an entrepreneur is
'cause it's
to
here.
cut those ties.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the things, though, that I like about your generations behind my generation, let's put that, 'cause you're both much younger than I am, is that you really truly believe in having your employees have a balanced life. My generation didn't. You either work, and it takes a lot of grit to build a business, no question about that. It takes a lot of passion, a lot of dedication. But having that balance is so critical to the generation today. It really is. And I believe in that. I don't believe you got to work 80 hours a week or you're not going to work here. If you don't want to do that, there's a door. Don't let it hit you on the way out.
I'll work those hours before my employees
Right,
work those hours.
right. I know that.
And I do work those hours, but that's so that they can clock out at 5 o'clock and go home, because I make myself available for them during the day
Right.
if they need me, if my customers need me.
And in all reality, back in previous generations of business owners, the work stayed at the office, really, because you didn't
Not
have
anymore.
technology. You didn't have a computer at home. The fact of the reality is that everyone today works constantly.
We do.
Never,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first time it's been off, probably in the last 6 months,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Thank God.
and now
You're right.
Meredith has mine, thank God.
Right, exactly. And so it still feels like it's vibrating in my pocket, but that still is it's transitioning to this next generation that they can work wherever they're at. So the definition of working hard has evolved, but I don't think it's changed all that.
Well, I think we work
Yeah.
more. I
No,
think we
without
work
a
so
doubt.
much more because of the technology.
And that's one of the biggest challenges that I think an entrepreneur has is
Yeah.
turning it off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Kara,
Yeah.
she'll be the first one to attest to that, is that it doesn't turn off.
Well, that's true, because you do carry that little computer with you all the time. I think many of us are guilty of that. Well, I think we've had an incredible experience tonight. Let's show our appreciation to Carla and Ryan. Please, let's stand up. Let's give them a round of applause.